Yeah, thank you so much again, Kieran, for coming to speak to us. My name is Janet from Athena Analytics, and we're joined today by Kieran Corcoran, who is guidance counsellor at St. Wolstan's Community School. So yeah, thank you again, Kieran, for coming today and being willing to share your experience with the Athena tracker. So we'll just
Pleasure.
Thanks. We'll just get started. And I suppose the first question that comes to mind is if you could tell us a little bit about why you decided to go ahead with the Athena tracker for your school.
Yeah. Well, it kind of links in, I suppose, as well with I've another question that I know you're going to ask me, and that was about what we used to do before. And so I'm a guidance counsellor here in the school, and in the past, we always analysed exam results, the end of term results, to identify students who were falling through the cracks, basically not achieving. We were looking mostly at those who were failing subjects. So we'd have a meeting with the care team, with management, and we'd identify students to meet up with. And then myself, we have two guidance counsellors here. So the other guidance counsellor, myself, the chaplain who's part of the care team, and sometimes the DP as well, we would meet those students and have a chat with them about how they were doing and why they felt they mightn't have achieved as well as we felt they should. And all of that, and just to give them that support and maybe identify things that were preventing them from doing better. Maybe they were having some issues in school or at home or something like that, and often brought out things that we were able to help them with or support them with. And sometimes it was as well that they just weren't working, and sometimes you give them an impetus to do a bit better. We'd also maybe link in with the parents as well. So we were doing that, but we were doing it on a very limited basis because it was just us that were doing it. The yearheads weren't involved in academic tracking academic progress really, and it was a lot of work just for a few people to do, and so it was very limited in what we could do and the numbers we could see. The other thing is that we were picking up on students who were failing subjects, but we weren't picking up on students who were actually doing okay, but weren't doing as well as they could. So students who were, just coasting along, doing okay, getting reasonable results, but had a lot more to give, a lot more potential. We weren't really reaching them or even identifying them for that matter. Now, teachers obviously in our classes probably did, and probably would get to know the students and would know maybe more than we would, because we're not teaching them, obviously, all the students. But again, where was the communication of that? There wasn't a lot of communication going on, if teachers did identify that. It was just mostly up to teachers themselves to identify it and to deal with it in their own classroom. So there was no kind of PANS or overall school, I suppose, picture of or structure for that to happen. The other thing as well is that we're doing all these standardized tests with school with students. We test the first years coming in. We with Cat 4 we test students again in TY, and the only people that were making use of these test results were the guidance counsellors and the SEN department, and sometimes management if they were meeting with parents and things like that. So and so basically we were spending a lot of money and a lot of time testing students, and it wasn't being used to the full. So I suppose what we did then was I was at a seminar, and I came across a school who developed their own tracking system based on standardized test results, and so they came up with predictors for how students should be doing based on their standardized test results. So I thought this was really good, and I thought that it was something that we could use, or we could, I suppose, we could copy and get better use out of our test results, and also identify more students who weren't doing as well as they could. But it was a manual system. We put it together ourselves. It wasn't, I'm not sure how reliable it was but it was all based on we put students into 4 bands of ability according to the standardized test results, and then very broad predictors based on that. We got that running in the school. This is a good few years ago now, and it worked up to a point. But it wasn't really that sustainable. It was very heavy workload in terms of keeping track of it all. It was all manual. And so it kind of petered out. And then last year, I came across an information, I think it was a webinar in Athena. I hadn't heard from any other school ever using it, so it wasn't as if some other guidance counselor said to me, you should look at Athena. That didn't happen. I came across it as an information, I think it was through the NCE, I could be wrong, not sure. But it was a webinar, I signed up for it, and information. I had heard of Athena, but I didn't know anyone using it, or I had no direct experience. So I went on the webinar, and what was presented to me was just like what I've been looking for, really, a tool that can help us to do all the things that we want to do in our manual system, but do it better, do it easier, provide data, make access to student data and student results easier, to provide that system where, you know, the color code system that tells us whether a student is achieving or not. And it was also just at your fingertips, also easy, also just fit the bill completely for what we wanted and what we were looking for. So so what I did then was I got onto you guys and had a chat with a couple of people, and then I set up a meeting with the senior management in school, because I've been talking to them about it and said we should really look at this. And we set up that meeting, and I think it was Emily Brick gave the presentation to the management, and it went from there. They bought into it and said, yeah, sounds great. And that's kind of the background to where we ended up this year starting out using it. I hope that's not too long-winded an answer.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's great. It's really interesting to hear that you found something that, you know, fits what you were looking for. And given that, what did you hope to get out of the tracker that was different to what you had been doing before? What did you hope to achieve?
Well, we wanted to achieve, I suppose, what it does, which is to identify, you know, to have easy access to students' information across the whole school for year heads, management, guidance counselors, resource teachers, and teachers as well. Ease of access to data hasn't been easy. We were using ePortal up to last October, and okay, teachers had obviously information on their own students, their class test results, but that's it really, and it didn't really tell them anything about whether a student was above, below, or at their potential. And also for the year heads and that, it was very hard to access the whole year group's information in any easy way at all. Also, there was very little use of the standardized test results. A lot of time people didn't understand them, except for ourselves who were using them most. So what we were hoping was that this system would help all of that data to be more accessible, that it would help everyone in their own roles as teachers and year heads and guidance counselors, manage everybody to be able to track students' achievement in school in a way very easy, in a way that's going to help where you need information in times like in parent-teacher meetings, meeting with parents on one-to-one, meeting with students when you're having a chat with them about how they're doing, all of these different scenarios. And when even students coming into us for career guidance or choosing their subjects for Leaving Cert, that in all these scenarios, that's right there at our fingertips. And also and we can also, I suppose, use it to improve student achievement in school as well, because all part of school self-evaluation that was a big part of what we were doing in the tracking at the time, school self-evaluation. Now Athena is part of our SSE, in terms of being able to measure student achievement and measure improvements in that. And it's very hard to do that if you haven't got a tool like Athena that will do it in a scientific way. So I suppose all of those things, and generally I suppose the bottom line is, you know, prevent students from falling through the cracks, identify problems early and putting interventions to support them so that they can do as well as they're able to do through school.
That's fantastic to hear. Yeah, yeah. And I suppose one of the things that's really useful about the tracker is the color coding that makes it so accessible, and the fact that you can have all of the information in one place.
Yeah.
One of the most common questions we get around the Athena tracker is in relation to how schools roll it out and how it's received by staff. Can you tell us a bit about how your school is doing things?
Yeah, so this is our, just remind people, this is only our first year using Athena. So once we had the meeting with with management, then when we before the summer, we got her up and running. We were with VS for it, or sorry, ePortal at the time. So we introduced it to the staff team. We explained it all, and that was done again by Athena, who were fantastic. Anytime I asked guys to come on board and maybe help with a presentation or do a presentation to staff, that was you're always very helpful and with that, and very supportive with that. So it wasn't all down to me to do it. It was coming from somewhere else as well, and that was important. So we kind of set in for staff before the summer, and then when we came back in September, time was given over again for further training online, and also to get everybody set up their password and their logins, and to answer any questions that people have. So that was kind of the first part of it. Really, it was just, so we kind of flagged it before the summer that this would be happening and this is what it's about, and then we revisited it then at the very start of the year, beginning of September, and explained it again. And now a lot of the staff would have been still here when we did the original tracking system, so it wasn't all new to them, but obviously the software was, but the idea of it wasn't really that new. But the I suppose the tool itself, the Athena tracker, was new. But so people understood it. Now there were people who weren't here at that time, but people understood what it was about. So then it was about getting people to log in, to have a look at their classes. Some people were taking on classes for the first time that they didn't know, so they found it useful to be able to go in and see past results of students that they were taking on for the first time, so that they got an idea of how they've been doing in the subject. And then after that, I asked teachers who might be willing to get onto a kind of a core team, to I suppose teachers had been talking to me, particular teachers who were very enthusiastic about it, and I asked them would they be involved and help me develop it, and to be champions of it in the school and to encourage other people and all of that. And so we got that core group together. We had a couple of meetings and they were all very enthusiastic, and we decided that really that our first goal really would be to make people use it, log into it, be aware of it, not be afraid of it, and see how easy it is once you really do it, and then we had our November assessments, which was our Christmas test really, where we have them in November. And so when all those results were uploaded, then again remind the staff, now is the time to go on there, have a look, see how your students did according to their level of ability, are they achieving or not. And of course that was interesting to a lot of people, and they went down in terms of interest and curiosity, if nothing else. But there were a number of staff as well who didn't long after that, who I could see needed reactivation, and so I had to keep an eye on that. And there's a good little facility on Athena to show you who's more or less using it and who hasn't activated or needs reactivating. So that was good. And we had 8 teachers and 2 DPs on that core team. And then we did new Cat 4 tests with the TYs and last year's 5th years, because they hadn't done it last year because of COVID. So we put all those up there as well. And again, another reminder to staff that, both verbally and also in emails, that now all the standardized test results are up there. So the TYs, I suppose, results were up there. So maybe that changed the data, made it more current, because you find as you go up through seniors, like, the assessments you did coming into first year is a long time ago. So, but what I like about Athena is that it's not just based on the standardized test results. What I really liked about it as well is that it changes their predictions according to how they're doing in school. So it's always current, really, which is really a very important part of the whole thing, I think, in terms of it being reliable and being something that's current. And so just then after that, it was informal chats with teachers. Then in January, at a staff meeting again, we gave another presentation, again to remind people. And at that one, I got a teacher to talk about it from a teacher's point of view, and how she was using it and putting up her class test results, and how she was using it to support her students, and how she found it so easy and so handy to have all her information there in one place online, and I have to carry a teacher's diary around with her with all her results. And if you lost that, what would you do? So she really gave a real presentation on why any teacher would want to use it. And then after that, it's just a matter of sometimes sending out an email with some hints and tips about, oh, did you know you could do this with the tracker? So all the time trying to keep it visible, trying to keep it out there, but at the same time, keeping the balance. You don't want to annoy people, or even to be too over the top about it, or people have other things to be doing as well. So it's about, I found it's just about trying to keep it in, getting that balance between making it, pushing it forward, and at the same time bringing people on board, getting people to really, like a few teachers would have said, God, I didn't realize it, only when I really get into it that it was easy and it was really helpful. And so that's kind of where we're at the moment with it. Yeah. And I was just saying to Janet the other day that I intend before the end of the year to do survey of the staff, teachers and year heads, because we did work with the year heads as well in terms of getting them to use it to identify students in the various assessments that they felt that should be identified and met with and mentored. And one or two year heads were saying to me, well, you get on there, you pick out students and we arrange to meet them. And I was going, no, this is what you have to do, and I didn't put it like that, more or less, but no, it'd be much better if you did it, you know them better than me. And then getting them to do it themselves, and obviously the care team helping out as well. But we've broadened out that. We've done it on a kind of a limited scale so far this year. All the year heads have met with about 10 students, and then the guidance counselors, chaplain, we've met with extras as well. So altogether, we've met with a cohort of a good number of students, and then the feedback from that was very positive. It was more, like I gave them guidelines for the meetings with the students, the purpose of it, maybe an approach to take, some questions to ask. So they had a structure, they didn't have to make it up, and there was always this consistency across all the meetings as well. So the feedback from them, the year heads, was that it was a very positive experience, that the students found that experience, that actually somebody was noticing them and somebody cared, and somebody, was that they felt maybe accountable at that point, that maybe the next time I might do better because Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so was going to notice. And I think that helped as well. But this is all on verbal feedback I'm getting from people, but I need to tie it down now a little bit more scientifically. I intend to do some surveys with staff and with the year heads in the next couple of weeks to find out, what really their experience of it has been like, and maybe what take up has been really, and where we go from here into next year. So that's what we've done so far this year. Our goal really was to roll it out, get everyone involved, get everyone logged in, get people using it, get people familiar with it. And I think then for next year, once I find out where we're at with it, maybe we need a bit more time to integrate it. And obviously new people coming into the staff are going to have to be introduced to it. And then I think next year is going to be about reinforcing that, embedding that even more, and then coming up with more interventions.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like you have, you were telling me yesterday, it sounds like you have loads of different strategies in place and you have a clear view in your own mind of where you'd like to go with it. And just in terms of the interventions, I know you were telling me yesterday, another big question that often comes to us is, do you show the students their results or the expectations? So if you could tell us a little bit more about how you've been doing the interventions and how that's worked.
Yeah, so the interventions at this point more have been one-to-one, right? So in all those different scenarios I gave you there, but generally, yes, what whether it was these meetings that the year heads and we had with the students based on their achievements or maybe not doing so well in exams, and those meetings, those mentoring meetings, or also in guidance sessions for subject choice for Leaving Cert or for 6th years or 5th years trying to decide what they want to do, what they might be good at, and so on. Yeah, on all these one-to-one meetings, yeah, I would have brought up the students' information, showed them on the screen what I can see, their results, and also the color coding, and I would explain that to them. And they're absolutely amazed when they look at it. And it's the first time ever they've seen all the results in one place. And they can see straight away the pattern and trends in their own results as they went up through the school, and whether they were, how well they were doing, and whether they were progressing, whether they were falling, regressing. So it was a bit of an eye opener to a lot of them, but in a good way. There was no negative reaction. There was no one who was traumatized or crying or, oh my God, I can't believe you're looking at my bad results. Or no, and we did it in a very pastoral way and a very supportive way, and they so they did see it, and it was value to that, and I can see how it kind of woke them up a little bit, and also made them feel, as I said, that on the one hand, wow, like somebody's actually taking interest in me and how I'm doing. Somebody's actually keeping an eye on me in a good way, but also in a way that means that, wow, I might have to pull my socks up here because I could be back here again having another conversation. And also, you know, of course, the one thing they want to know is my parents going to see this, and we're not at that point yet, so they were happy about that. But yeah, we do show it to them and explain it to them, and I can see, like, as we go forward, as when we have systems in place that go across the whole school, that can be done classroom in through teachers on a classroom based situation, that students and parents would be able to access this and be able to see their child's Athena. I think that probably is where it's going to go, and I have had no, in the way we've done so far, I've had not one negative reaction to showing them that.
Okay. And I thought it was really interesting, actually, that you're the cohort of students that you're looking to do interventions with. You were telling me yesterday that it wasn't necessarily the students at the lower end or at the higher end of attainment.
Yeah, it was very much the ones in the middle, because the ones that, you know, students who learn difficulties or who are struggling in school a lot, who find school difficult, they're being very well supported by our special needs department and resource teachers, and they're there, they're being looked after. And then students at the very high end, then, you know, we felt that they were doing okay and they will do okay. And if they're in for a meeting with me, say, for example, in relation to careers or subjects or something like that, of course, I'd bring it up and we can discuss it, but we wouldn't go after them in the same way, because we feel that they're going to be okay and they're self-motivated. Maybe they dropped off in one or two subjects here and there, but generally so what we're really concerned about is students in the middle, the students who are just coasting along, the students who aren't pushing themselves, who are doing okay, but who could do an awful lot better. And this Athena helps us to identify them, number one. That's a really big thing. And then we have evidence. So we're not just pulling this out of the sky when we meet a student and say, you know, how do you feel you did there? I think I did grand. And then you show them, you know, what they're actually capable of, and say, well, you know, you actually have a lot more to give. And then the conversation goes to, yeah, I think I do. And how do you know that? And okay, and then what can you do about it? And then start putting in place some, like I said, a little bit of a light bulb moment sometimes in their head, going, oh yeah, maybe I need to pull my socks up. I need to do more. I can do more. And so, yeah, so they're the students really that we feel this is most beneficial for. And also, I was saying to you yesterday that, you know, I think it's more beneficial as well as students go up, like say you will find if you look at a lot of the students' graphs that there is a bit of a drop off in second year, that they're all enthusiastic first year and they all work hard and they do great, and you know, and then sometimes second year there's a dip, and then as they go up into third year they tend to improve because they have the junior cycle, junior cert exams and mocks and all of that. And then into fifth and sixth years. I think it plays a slightly different role for each year group. I don't think we'd use it much for first years, to be honest, as I was to yesterday. But definitely with students, some students in second year, I could imagine using with every student in third year, every student in fifth year, every student in sixth year. And then we were talking about transition years. And there was a turn among some of our teachers. The results in transition year, they generally do pretty well because it's not an academic year, and they do get do better than they might any other year. Sometimes we felt some teachers were worried that skews the color code because it makes them, look better than they are. It skews maybe the results. So that's something that we learned and we looked at, and we thought we have to decide: are we going to just not include TYs at all, or are we just going to maybe include them with their core subjects? So I suppose what I've learned a little bit is that it's different for every year group as well. And I know some schools might decide to roll it out with just one year group. We decided to roll it out from the start with the whole school. And I don't think one's better than the other. It's whatever the school wants to do. But I think I've learned, which I wouldn't have known last year so much, that just if you are going to do it with one year group, just choose carefully which year group you're going to do it with, and be very clear about what you want out of it, because it will be different for each year group.
That's very good advice. It's true that each year group has different kind of specificities. And did you have any other advice for schools that are just starting out with the tracker, with the Athena tracker?
Well, I'm not getting any backhanders or brown envelopes from Janet, right? But I would completely I'm a big fan of Athena. I think it's fantastic. I think it works really, really well. It's a fantastic resource. And the support as well from Athena is massive. It's fantastic as well. Right from the start, it wasn't just a matter of come in, do a sales job, and then we the software, and then we're left on our own. There was absolute support through emails, phone calls, meetings like this online. Whenever I needed anything, whenever I had a question, whenever I needed support, even I wanted to talk to other guidance counselors, or not guidance counselors, other coordinators of Athena and other schools to see their experience before we signed up ourselves. And again, Athena organized that for me. And it was great to hear from other schools who were way ahead of me in terms of the way of starting it and running it, and hearing their experiences. So the support for Athena is fantastic, and it makes things a lot easier, and gives you a lot of confidence. And so that's, I would say, if 20 schools are thinking of taking it on, use that resource, get in touch with Athena, talk to everyone involved there, ask all the questions that you have. Again and again, it doesn't all have to be one session. You can come back with emails again and things you think of later down the line. But I would recommend it highly, and I would encourage any school to get involved with it and to take it on, and even trial period. Go and see how you feel with it, even if you want to do it with a small cohort to begin with. But I think that more and more as we go along, things have to be evidence-based. School self-evaluation and school development, and people know this, and that's why there's an awful lot more of surveying going on and evaluations and everything else, feedback. We need to know what's really happening and not just what we think's happening in schools. So Athena is very much a scientific database resource, which is going to give you that evidence, and then from there you can decide your I suppose policies and procedures around how you manage student attainment in schools, and I think and even be able to measure it as well, which is really important. So I would say go for it.
That's really great feedback to hear. Thank you so much. We do work hard on being available to our customers, and it's a pleasure working with you, because I suppose one of the things that we pride ourselves on, or that's really important to us, is that we develop the tracker in line with what you need and what schools need. So the more you know, the more interaction we have with you, the better in terms of that. We did have one question come in about using the Athena tracker from the point of view of a guidance counsellor. And I know you mentioned something yesterday about choosing subjects for students in transition year moving through to 5th year. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, when students are choosing subjects for Leaving Cert, they obviously will meet the guidance counsellor, and guidance counsellor will hopefully hope to help them along with that decision. But the things they have to keep in mind are, you know, what subjects would I be interested in, and, you know, what might I need when I leave school and go to college. What's, you know, what subjects might I need to do various college courses and things like that. But a big part of it as well is my ability and my strengths, and where are my strengths and what am I good at. Because you might like something, or you might have an interest in it, but it mightn't be your strength. You mightn't be very good at it. And so an example would be, for example, a typical example would be a student, for example, who likes animals and said they want to do veterinary medicine, and say for that you have to do chemistry. And sometimes you might have a student for whom chemistry will not suit them. It might be just not suit their aptitudes and their abilities. They might have not been doing that well in science. They might be doing ordinary level maths, not doing so well in that. And you know that they're going to struggle with chemistry, and they mightn't even like it that much, but they just say, well, I need it, so I have to have it if I want to do veterinary medicine. And so where Athena would come in is when you're meeting that student, you can show them on the screen, look, this is how you've been doing. How do you feel you've been doing in science yourself? And they say, well, I do my best, and there are my results. And it's not to burst their bubble, or it's not to in any way undermine their self-esteem. You have to do it in a very gentle way, in a way that's kind of almost like where you're not telling them, but you're showing them, and they kind of take it on board themselves that, yeah, maybe you have a point there. And you're showing them evidence. How do you feel you've been doing? There's the information. Do you think maybe that this could be a difficult subject for you? And then they think about it and they go, yeah, I think you're right. And so it's just an example of where it might come into good guidance around choosing subjects, you know. Then again, on the other side of the coin, you know, students might say, I'm in between this subject and that subject, I don't know which to take. And you can say, well, wow, look at your track record in subject A there. You've been doing fantastic in that. You're slightly better at that than you have been at the other subject. And so it just gives you're not just pulling that out of the sky, you're pulling from real data in the Athena tracker that they can look at and go, yeah, like it's not me just saying it. So yeah, so that's useful for those kind of things as well.
And is there anything that, like, since you've had the software, since you got the software, is there anything that surprised you?
I suppose it's easy to use, and that's really important. I suppose the other thing is that there's a bit of work in keeping it updated. And so you might have, for example, say in TY rotations of subjects and teachers, and you know that's something that I hadn't thought about. That, you know, teachers are now come to me and saying, transition year, I can't see that class on Athena because it had been transferred over in the middle of the year where there was a rotation. Things like that I wouldn't have, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So that's something I've got to keep an eye on. And anyway, students as well, leaving the schools, coming into the school, making sure that it's kept current, updated. But now I've been introduced to WANDE, WONDE, which is through Athena. I'm at the moment just getting it set up. But that's another piece of software that works with Athena, which does all that updating for you. So we're with VS. So I mentioned at the start we were with ePortal, and then for years and years, and then in October we switched to VSware. So there was a little bit of, you know, I must say in that change as well, Athena were fantastic helping us with that change over to VSware, and insofar as it affected Athena. But once we got past that up and running, then I was conscious of having, you know, keeping it updated and keeping it current. And but then Wand. I've been introduced to Wand, which is a software that will do that for you. And now at the minute, we're only just getting that set up. So I haven't really experienced it yet. Maybe you don't even notice it. Maybe you don't even see it. Maybe it's just there in the background running. But I think that's a fantastic addition because, you know, there is a lot of work. If you were manually keeping it updated yourself all the time, there would be a lot of work in that. But at the same time, we were doing it. We were able to do it. It wasn't like a huge amount of work. We were able to do it, but it's just a matter of keeping an eye on it and remembering that things are changing all the time, and you have to kind of make sure that Athena is kept up to date. But I don't know if Janet, you want to say anything about Wand? You probably know more about it than I do.
Well, yeah, that's what it is. It's an integration tool between VSware and between the Athena tracker, and it does do those automatic updates of the class list and the student teacher file. So that can be very useful in terms of the administration upkeep. Because once Wand is set up, all the information that needs to be brought over, it's just the exam results when they come in. So that can be very useful for schools as well. Yeah, that's true.
Just say again, like that it's as easy as possible, and Athena have made it as easy as possible. And even updating all. I remember the first update I did or the first time I was asked to transfer all of the school data over to Athena, and I was really nervous about it because I thought, oh my God, I was thinking of GDPR, and I was thinking about if this goes wrong or I send it the wrong person or something, that I'm going to get, I'm going to have the data commission down on top of me. But there was no issue, and it was really easy to do, and it was done in an instant, like not an instant, maybe a few, like 10, 15 minutes we got it done. But and again, when we changed VSware, then I also got great support in updating it there. So if you're a school thinking about doing this, what I'd say to you is, as part of I'm a guidance counselor, but this is part of my post responsibility. And I really have an interest in it, and it fits in completely with my work as a guidance counselor. So it's kind of an extension of that, really. But if you're not a guidance counselor, if you're a teacher or a year head, anybody, this is so accessible and so easy to use. Anyone can do it. So I wouldn't be afraid of it, and I wouldn't feel it's going to take up all my time. It's not. It's kind of cyclical as well, because there will be pinch points during the year where it's more relevant to teachers than other times. So like I said, parent-teacher meetings, summer term assessments, things like that. So you have to be aware of that too. It's not all the time.
Yeah. And what's been the you gave us a lot of different tips, but what's been the most useful thing for encouraging staff buy-in, encouraging teachers to use the software?
The most useful thing, you said, is it?
Yeah, I know you mentioned yesterday, for example, that you'd send out reminders in advance of parent-teacher meetings. Is there anything in particular that you feel has worked well in encouraging teachers to use the software?
Definitely parent-teacher meetings, definitely, because teachers want to be armed when meeting parents. Now, obviously, the parent-teacher meetings were all online, so they were shorter. Each time with parents was shorter. Normally, we would be face-to-face. So, but at the same time, I think teachers like to be armed with data information, and that's objective. And that's what Athena gives you, and it gives you that confidence when you're talking to parents about their children, that you've got information that's reliable, that's real, and that's objective and not just subjective to you. And that's really important. So I think that's a really big selling point for teachers.
Okay. That's really fantastic. They were the two last questions that came in during the week. So I think we'll leave it at that, because we don't have time for any more questions at the moment. So I'll just pause the recording here. Or if I could get Teresa to pause the recording, if you wouldn't mind, Teresa.